Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 6 of our Fundamentals of College Writing class. I want to give you a bit of an overview of what we'll be doing in class for this week. Once you are at our classroom and the weekly assignments, you'll go to week 6. At the top of the screen here, you'll see the agenda for week 6. We have 5 things that we'll be doing in class, and you have 3 things that you'll be turning in. Something due Wednesday, something due Friday, something due Sunday. So now let's talk about each of these things in a little bit more detail. The first thing that you'll be doing is a peer review reflection and a checking in assignment. This is due Wednesday by 11:59. Part 1 is a peer review reflection, and I made a little note here. If you didn't receive feedback from a peer, you should have still received feedback from me. I went through the peer review in Comp 1, and I looked to see who didn't receive feedback from a peer. And I think that was 4 people, and I gave those 4 people my thoughts on the rough draft. So everyone should have at least one set of feedback that they can work from in order to answer these questions. You may not have received feedback on your rough draft for both Comp 1 and Fundamentals. That's fine. Just use the feedback that you received for either one. But everyone should have some feedback that they can use to answer these questions. A little bit of a side note about peer review in general. The way that we have it set up, both times that we've done peer review, there have been people who didn't receive feedback, and that is I've been doing feedback peer review for a long time. I've tried it a lot of different ways, and I've never found a way that works perfectly. And a big part of that is because there are always students who don't turn their drafts in on time or don't complete the peer review at all, and so on. There's a lot of potential hurdles that you can encounter. So the mere fact that there will always be people in your class that don't do the assignment means that there will always be at least a couple of people who don't receive feedback. But hopefully, the feedback that you receive from me makes up for that. Anyways, the part 2 here is checking in. This is just asking you to write a paragraph in which you reflect on the workload for the 2 classes, the quality of the work that you're producing, things like that. So all of that is due Wednesday. Next, your assignment for Friday is part 2 of the perfect paragraph assignment. So last week you selected a paragraph from Writing Project 2, and you tried to make that paragraph as good as it can be. Then you submitted it. I have read through all of those paragraphs and gave you really pretty extensive feedback on them. I commented on basically everything that I could think to point out to you. So your job now is to read over that feedback and make sure that you understand it. So you may need to, if you have questions, if you need to follow up with me, you can do that. You can also, if I use a piece of terminology that you're not familiar with, you can always just Google that. You could also go to the Writing Center and have them help you revise the paragraph. But your job is to make the paragraph as perfect as possible, and then you'll submit it for Friday. Normally, I grade largely on completion. For a lot of your homeworks, I will check to make sure that you did everything that I asked you to do, and if you did, I give you full credit. Because the point of this assignment is to identify all the grammar and language usage issues in your paragraphs and fix those issues. This assignment will be graded more based on accuracy than on completion. So you do really want to make sure that you are figuring out how to fix all of the problems in your paragraph. And I might have said this in a previous video, but the idea behind this is it's hard to fix all of the grammar in an entire essay. If you write a 4 or 5 page essay, to go through and fix every single issue there is a lot of work and is very hard to do. It's much easier to identify all of the mistakes that you make in a single paragraph. And the goal here is hopefully that by receiving very extensive feedback from me and going through the process of figuring out how to fix those issues, you'll be better able to avoid those issues in the future, and also identify similar problems in your writing. So that's the perfect paragraph assignment. You'll be doing that for Friday. And then your last assignment, this is a little bit in depth. There's kind of a lot going on here. The first thing that you'll be doing, this is actually, I'll just go ahead and click this. This will take you to a podcast about Alex Jones, who is the guy who runs I believe it's a podcast or something similar to a podcast. It's called InfoWars. And if you don't know who Alex Jones is, he's a rather dislikable person whose business is to spread conspiracies and to make up facts, and in general kind of just harass people. So this podcast is about him, and also one of the parents that he harassed. It has to deal with the Sandy Hook massacre, where a bunch of kids and a few teachers were killed in a mass shooting at Sandy Hook. So you'll be listening to that podcast. That podcast is about an hour long, so you'll want to make sure that you set aside plenty of time to listen to it. And then you're also going to be reading this article. And I'll go ahead and click on this. The grim conclusions of the largest ever study of fake news. So hopefully you're kind of noticing a connection here. Both the podcast and this article are dealing with fake news about spreading false information on the internet. And the idea behind this is, we're beginning our research unit. You're going to be coming up with a research question. You're going to be looking at a bunch of sources. And in case you haven't been taught about research before, or you aren't really familiar with the concept of fake news, I wanted to kind of raise your awareness to the fact that there are a lot of unreliable sources on the internet. There are a lot of people who basically their job, like how they earn their living, is to spread lies and misleading information. So that's kind of the focus of this assignment, is to become more aware of those things. You'll notice that this article is kind of on the longer side. So like the podcast, you'll want to make sure that you set aside time to read through and maybe even take some notes on both of these things. Once you have listened to the podcast and read the article, you're going to be responding to the prompts below. Here you'll notice 3 of the prompts tell you to respond to things that you read and listened to. How you respond is up to you. So you could talk about the things that you learned, or if and how your thinking has changed. You could talk about interesting things that stood out to you. You could talk about what you're going to do with the information that you received, and so on. So as long as your response is, thoughtful and, thorough, it's completely up to you. Let's see here. I think that, that's basically all this assignment is. You're summarizing the podcast, responding to it, summarizing the article, and responding to it. Do that all on a separate document, and make sure that you number your responses, which is in general just a good tip. Unless an assignment says write a paragraph, you should almost always just write things in a numbered list or in bullet points. Especially anytime you see me lists prompt 1, prompt 2, prompt 3, make sure that you number those things. It makes it a lot easier for whoever is grading your work to find your answer. And this isn't just about English classes. This is all education, really. The harder it is for an instructor to find your answer or to understand your answer, the more likely you'll be to lose points, which is kind of unfortunate, but that is just kind of the reality. If an instructor has to, read through your paragraph and they can't really tell, well, is this their answer to number 1 or is this their answer to number 2? You're kind of putting yourself in danger of losing points. So it's always better to be as clear and accurate as possible. All right, I think that's all that I have to say about week 6 for fundamentals. As per usual, if you have any questions, just let me know.